Get hyped like an Apogee HypeMic. Woo!
USB mics. You're probably watching this video because you want one. But there are just so many out there, and so we are here to help you make the right choice. So what do we have? We have the Audio-Technica ATR-2500x-USB.
That's complicated. This one is the Apogee HypeMic.
This one is the Shure MV5.
This is the brand new AKG Lyra.
Over here we have the classic blue Yeti Pro.
And the brand new Rode NT USB Mini.
Welcome to the contenders.
Some are totally brand new, like the Rode mic. Some are old. The Shure Eyeball, for example, is about 4 years old, would you say?
It looks about 400 years old.
Yeah, well, let's say maybe 60 years old, but I get what you're talking about.
They're all cardioid polar pattern, except for the blue Yeti Pro, which is multi-pattern, and the AKG Lyra, which is just a whole category on its own. It doesn't have a single capsule. It's got 4 different capsules inside of it.
There's a whole bunch of price ranges here for these microphones, from the sort of $200 range, $150 to $200 range, and in that category we've got the Rode USB mic here, which is the cheapest and the newest, about 150 Australian.
Yep.
The Shure MV5 probably comes in at the next least expensive, 175 Australian.
Currently, the Audio-Technica comes in a content creator pack with some headphones and a mic stand and cables and all that. But we are told that this will also be available in Australia just as the mic alone, and that'll come in at about $200.
At Officeworks, if you can believe it. The Yeti's been around a while. There's a number of variants. There's like a $200 cheaper variant. This is the Pro version, which comes in around $450 Australian.
So the AKG is about $200, which is pretty impressive considering it's up there with the Yeti Pro in functions. And then we have the Apogee HypeMic, which is a whole other league of its own. It's about $550. What makes this unique is it has its own 3-stage analog compressor within the microphone, which is handy if you're recording instruments and vocals and you're doing more musical recordings with your USB mic.
So if you're an audio engineer, you might be thinking, why the heck do I need a USB microphone? I've got an audio interface, I've got microphones. I think USB mics have shown themselves to be really useful, especially in the COVID crisis where everybody wants to be a podcaster. A USB microphone will go anywhere. It can plug straight in wherever you are, at the kitchen bench, or the bed, into your phone. It just provides a whole extra level of portability and flexibility.
And even if you're not a podcaster or a recording muso or anything like that, just having a nice USB mic can make a big difference for those Zoom calls or Skype calls.
Totally. I think that my first impressions of the mics are just how retro they're looking. I don't really get that. I don't understand why manufacturers want us to hark back to the 40s and 50s. Yeah. You clearly, like, this has got an old RCA look. This guy's got an old RCA look. I don't know. Should RCA be asking for royalties? I'm not sure.
And then what's with this thing?
Well, yeah, the Shure Eyeball is got the Elvis look, and Shure owns that sort of 55 look, don't they? But they've gone for the retro look. I think the Rode microphone is actually more of that sort of loungy 1970s cool look. I'm thinking fondue parties and sunken lounges, but it's a cool look. I love it. The only mic that is actually from the future is the Apogee HypeMic. I really like the look of it. The fact that it's so micro is only really let down by the fact that the tripod fills half your desk and probably could hold up a satellite dish.
Yeah, I don't understand why this tripod has to be so sprawled out. It would make a lot more sense if it kind of stood up like that, I guess. However, it does have a screw at the back, which you can screw it straight into a normal mic stand as well. But it is really small. Maybe when you're looking on the product page on the Apogee site, you would imagine this is bigger, but when it's in your hand, it's tiny.
Yeah, it's tiny. The only USB mic that looks like a mic, arguably, is the Audio-Technica mic, which looks like every other Audio-Technica mic, which isn't a bad thing.
Exactly. So on the Audio Technology Facebook page, we put it out there. If you had any questions to do with these mics, we'll do our best to answer them. So Sean, you said which of these would handle a trumpet, and Jacob, you asked what are the highest SPL handlings of these microphones. It would seem that the Rode is the lowest SPL handling with 121 dB. So you probably wouldn't want to put a trumpet up in that grill and blast it. Pretty much all the others will handle really high SPL sounds, basically up to like 129, 130 dB SPL. so you'll be okay with loud sources. Even tracking a drum kit in a room should be fine with all the others.
Just doing a voiceover test with the Audio-Technica ATR-2500X. We're using it with the boom stand that comes with the Content Creator Pack. The mic itself is available in stores for around $200 at Officeworks and JB and other outlets. There is no gain control on the mic itself, so the gain happens from your computer. Like every other mic that we're testing, there's a headphone jack. Now onto the elegant AKG Lyra. On the front you have a headphone volume control plus a mute button. Around the back there's mic gain control as well as control of the polar pickup pattern. The four patterns are front, front and back, tight stereo, wide stereo. We're using the front pickup pattern at the moment. Onto the Apogee HypeMic. Apogee is the only offering here that isn't a microphone manufacturer. The mic's accessories are also interesting. For example, the cutest little pop filter in the world, and a tripod that means that it'll never trip over anytime this century. On the mic itself, you can toggle between 3 compression settings as well as a blend control for zero latency monitoring. Next is the original USB microphone, the blue Yeti Pro. Around the back we have pattern control and gain control. Around the front we have a mute button as well as volume control for headphones. The mic comes with its own breakout cable, a 5-pin XLR out to 2 independent 3-pin XLRs. You can even take the mic out of its cradle and put it on a mic stand. Now to the brand new Rode NT USB Mini. What a sturdy little mic this is. No gain on the mic, it's done through the computer. There is a headphone gain knob at the front and with the jack at the back. Next up is this little guy, the Shure MV5. On the mic itself is a mode button which allows you to toggle between 3 settings, instrument, vocal and music. There's a headphone output with a volume control as well. It's really handy to have a lightning lead that allows you to record straight to your phone. One of the best things about this mic is the Shure Plus Motive app, which allows you to edit your recording on your phone. The present invention relates to a condenser microphone. 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 The present invention relates to a condenser microphone, and more particularly to an electric circuit which can activate characteristics of an impedance converter housed therein, and more particularly to an electric circuit which can activate characteristics of an impedance converter housed therein, and more particularly to an electric circuit which can activate characteristics of an impedance converter housed therein, and more particularly to an electric circuit which can activate characteristics of an impedance converter housed therein, and more particularly to an electric circuit which can activate characteristics of an impedance converter housed therein, and more particularly to an electric circuit which can activate characteristics of an impedance converter housed therein.
Well, there you have it. Recordings made with all 6 of these microphones. Now, as with any shootout, it is really hard to make sure there are absolutely 0 inconsistencies. Obviously, some of these mics were standing a bit taller than others, so the distances between Chris's mouth or my guitar weren't bang on every single time.
And I must apologize for the central heating noise that you're hearing. That's not the self noise of the microphones or anything, that's simply the ambient noise.
So Chris, what were your impressions on your voiceover recording?
For voiceover, I quite like to work the mic. I like the proximity effect. So having the microphones as a tabletop mic, that has limitations for me. So I guess one observation is I like the boom stand. Obviously the boom stand doesn't come as standard with the AT mic, but I think just consider that when you're, if you're doing a lot of podcasting, you know, the working the mic is important.
I was pretty impressed with the sound of the little Shure mic, given its price.
It was a real surprise packet for me as well, Prashant. I didn't have a lot of expectation from the Shure mic. It sounds really sort of produced for the voiceover. For voiceover and podcasting, having a tight polar pattern is really important. You don't want to be hearing the room that you're in because we're not in a professional recording space. Now, 3 of these mics are really quite tight, which is very effective. The Apogee, the Shure, and the Blue mics I found to be really quite tight and didn't pick up a lot of noise from or a lot of sound from the room. On the other hand, the Lyra felt to me probably the widest, and the other 2 mics, the Audio-Technica and the Rode mic, I was hearing more room. Let's talk about the guitar recordings, Prashant. Obviously each mic is revealing a totally different sound and a totally different aspects of the guitar. Can you talk us through each of the mics in turn?
Yeah, it's really hard to pick a favorite because every mic did sound so different on acoustic guitar. I think the Audio-Technica sounded like a studio mic, probably because it is, and it's got a full-size condenser capsule in there. It was very detailed in the high end, I found, especially in the sound of the pick hitting the strings. There was a lot of detail and clarity all the way down to the lows. So very natural sound, very full, big studio kind of sound. The Apogee mic, it's funny that it's called a HypeMic because I thought it was pretty unhyped, especially listening compared to the others with more pronounced high end. The Apogee was really neutral, really clean sounding. There was no part of the frequency spectrum that really jumped out in an ugly way. The Shure MV5 I thought was very scooped. It didn't have much mids. Instead, the highs were really pronounced, almost in a slightly prickly, ugly way. And the lows were also pronounced. But remember, we were just using one of the 3 voicing settings on that. So other settings might even things out a bit more. The AKG Lyra was a really nice sound as well. A bit muted in the highs compared to some of the others. The pick attack wasn't as pronounced, for example, but it was quite a focused, forward, punchy, direct sound with a lot more mids than some of the other mics. I think the Yeti was probably the most usable. It's clean and solid and firm. There was nothing ugly about how it sounded, and I could see myself using the sound of the Yeti on my acoustic guitar in a proper studio recording. The Rode mic surprised me. It sounded really good on acoustic guitar, considering it's the cheapest of the lot. It was pretty roomy because the cardioid pickup is pretty wide, but I'd definitely rate it for musical instruments.
Let's take a look at price.
So of the mics we've got here, let's just say you have an absolute maximum of $200 to spend. Now we've got the Rode in that price point at about $150. We've got the Shure at about $175. We've got the AKG at about $180, $190, and the Audio-Technica at $200. I think you'd go for the Rode or the Shure if portability is important to you, and if you're not going to be doing much music recording. So if you are going to be recording guitars, saxophones, even vocals for proper music recordings, you probably would opt for something like the AKG or the Audio-Technica. They're a bit more of a studio microphone and they're probably going to give you more versatility. But if you just want something to make your Zoom calls sound better, and if you want to just do the odd kind of one-person podcast here or there, I think the Rode or the Shure MV5 are pretty hard to pass up on just because they're so small. You can chuck them into your briefcase or in a backpack, and they're sturdy and they sound surprisingly good.
The Rode for mine, the build quality is second to none. It's built amazingly well. It just feels reassuringly hefty. It's awesome. The Shure, let's be honest, this is not Shure's finest hour when it comes to build quality. They wouldn't suggest that it's their most amazing mic ever. No one's saying that. It's definitely lighter and portable, and being Shure, it's not going to bust, that's for sure.
That's for sure.
That's for sure. Yeah, thank you. So price, we've got the second bracket of price range, the mics that are in that $400 to $500 range. Let's talk about that, Prashant.
So we have the blue Yeti Pro, which is about $450, and then the Apogee HypeMic, which is like about $550, getting close to $600.
I've been living with the Yeti for a while now, Prashant, and it's a different contender here because it's not only a USB mic, it's an actual studio mic. It doubles, so I think it deserves a different consideration. Having the option of putting it on a mic stand, having the breakout cables as a true stereo microphone, it really adds to the versatility of this mic as a studio mic.
The Apogee, however, you're probably thinking that's just ridiculous that it's $550, and it certainly is expensive. However, it does have a 3-stage fully analog compressor inside the mic. And that's pretty attractive if you're going to be recording a lot of music. If you're going to be recording vocals, plus it has the Apogee's pure digital conversion technology, which means you're going to be getting a much higher sound quality if you really care about good sound. And Apogee as a brand is known for quality conversion, so they're not going to put their name to something that sounds crap.
There are two contenders here, Prashant, that do the pickup pattern very differently. The two mics here that have multiple pickup pattern options, that really adds a different dimension to the use of these mics.
And again, that is really useful if you're going to be recording podcasts and say, for example, you have a person on the other side of the table than you. You can't do that with any of these other mics except for the AKG Lyra and the blue Yeti Pro, where you can have this two-ended pickup. Plus, you can go omnidirectional with both of them, which means you could stick it in the center of a table and have people all around the table, and it's going to pick them all up evenly.
So that's it. We hope that this video has helped you decide which USB mic best suits your purposes. It's not a clear-cut decision, is it?
There's a lot of variety out there, but they all have their strengths. It just depends on what you're looking for.